Right now I'm putting on the third application of filler. Sherwin-Williams shrink-free spackle paste. Anyway, it's like I said, the third application. So this is how I put it on. Just put a little on your finger, then wet it, and then rub it in pretty good. A little bit of pressure. You want it to go into the grain. Goes into the wood grain and fills that. So what we end up with is something that's hopefully quite smooth. And usually after about 3 applications like this, that's what you get. You get a nice smooth finish. So this is that process, and as I said, we just put a small amount on your finger, wet it a little bit. Water turns milky as you're going along. Nothing to fear from that. Anyway, this is the process. So I'm typically just going to go two ribs at a time. Each section will be about 2 ribs wide. Right? So I want to make sure I get even coverage all the way down the wing. And so that's how we do that. We start in the middle here, get it smeared on, and then rub outwards from that area. You really want to concentrate just on getting it smooth as you can, getting the application as even as possible, because you don't want the sanding block riding up and down. And again, anything that's going to cause an undulation in the finish is not desirable. So an uneven application of this stuff, where it's built up in one area and maybe shallow in another, is going to cause that sanding block to ride up and down. Now there's a technique to sand through that, but it's best to just kind of get it on even, get it on there evenly, and not have to worry about how lightly or how you're rockering the sanding block. And that's essentially, what you do is, if you have a high spot, you start there and you just rocker the sanding block on it to bring it down flush with the rest of the surface, and then you go about your business sanding the full length of the part. But if you start, if you get it on there smoothly, you can just go right to work on that. You don't have to reduce any high spots, if that's clear enough. I'm just going to stay off of the block that attaches into the fuselage here. I don't want to make this any thicker than it is. I've got the opening, I've got this hogged out quite a bit. The opening in the fuselage is open enough to accept these fairly loosely, which is good. I want a nice loose fit so that I can set the dihedral, tack it in place, and let the glue set up. So 2 lower wings, upper surfaces have been applied, and the second coat to the underside of the tail surfaces and the, let's say, the left side of the rudder, where it needed it. And this will be the first the first application to the underwing, of the underside of the top wing. Alright, so again, you want to try and use a fairly clean surface. You want to make sure there's no chips of wood or tools under here. When you're pressing down on this, you don't want to put any divots in the other side of it. Now I'm going to work from the middle out here on this underwing, top wing. But anyway, this is the process, and I'm not going to run the camera the whole time I'm doing this. I could do it in elapsed time or time lapse, but really, what's the point? This is how we do this step. It's pretty straightforward and simple. It's kind of like finger painting. That's what I more or less refer to it as. Application of the of the filler at this stage. And again, we'll do a two section areas at a time, and make sure we get good amount of filler evenly applied. And this is once again, this is the initial pass of this kind on the underwing portion of the upper or top wing. I haven't put really much filler on here yet. What I do on the very first application of filler is I use the putty knife and lay it on pretty good into the voids and areas that, well, pretty much to the whole wing. But I use the knife, and I use this filler at full strength. In other words, it's not wetted, it's just pressed and applied. And what that does is it gives you a good foundation. Once that's sanded, you should have a pretty pretty flat surface on which to get your sanding in, and then to appraise what else you might need to do. In other words, after that initial filler application, I may only need to do this once, or even maybe only twice. It really depends on the surface you're going at. In some cases, when I do the infill, I've had it where it's been a pretty good application of infill, and there aren't a whole lot of seams or cracks to fill. Excuse me. There aren't a whole lot of voids. I'm fighting a cold, so I'm going to be coughing a little bit this morning. So, really, it depends on your construction and the fit of the parts. A whole lot of parameters. Obviously, every time you're doing a project of construction or assembly, there's going to be good days and bad days. Days where things align and fit really well, and days where you're fighting it a little bit. And in this case, the upper wing went together pretty nicely, actually. It came out square and flat. I'm pretty happy with it. So, anyway, there's half of the wing done. As you can see, we really want a consistent application here. Alright, we'll probably have to do this at least one more time, depending on how well this comes out here, but at least one more time, because it really takes a lot to fill the wood grain and get this to smoothness. Sorry about that. And get this to the smoothness that you're looking for, or that I'm looking for anyway. Everybody's different. Build to your own expectations. Don't worry about what. If you set a high bar for yourself, so be it. You want accuracy. You want the thing you're building to look like the real life prototype, or at least the best image of it you have. A lot of research goes into these. I mean, I'm looking at pictures, photographs of the target that I'm trying to build to. And you'll find as many pictures as you can, book references. Go to the library or look on the internet. Obviously, you look at all the pictures you can find of the various components of the airplane itself, and maybe the motor. Depending on what power plant it has and how visible it is, you might want to look at all the images you can find at the power plant. Landing gear. Some configurations like this one are pretty involved, and detail is kind of important. You want it to look like the prototype. You have to find as many pictures and references as you can, and then build to that. But everybody has their own tolerances and capability. Man's got to know his limitations. Build to what you can build. make compromises where you need to make compromises for your skill set. You know, you want to challenge your skills. You want to, you know, try and extend here and there, pick your battles, and, you know, say, well, I'm gonna try and get this other thing going here, this other aspect of modeling. You know, I want to work on my rigging, work on what does a scratch building an engine, how much goes into that, what's that all about. You know, so you pick your battles and you extend where you can, but for the most part you want to understand where you're coming from, you know, skill wise, and build within that. Don't try to do too much. It's like anything else. You try to do too much sometimes, and you lose. You know, the thing can get lost. Come to a point where even, you know, you might not even be able to salvage your project. I mean, because there's just too much going on with it. So I build pretty simply. What I want is as much accuracy to the airframe as I can get. I want everything to be square and fair and square, built to a quality of just construction. Whether I'm on the mark with regard to scale accuracy, that's important, but to me, I want whatever I build, however accurate or inaccurate it may be to the prototype, I want at least the thing that I am building to look as if it were professionally built. And that's, you know, that's, and then beyond that, I, you know, for instance, flying surfaces, cutting out ailerons, and, you know, the rudder and tail, elevator and the rudder, separating the rudder from the fin, those kinds of things. You know, it depends on the model. Sometimes I'll do that, but usually I'll just use demarcation lines and just build everything as you see it here, without those parts being cut. And there's I have a rationale for that. And as I said, it's some days, you know, sometimes I'll go ahead and do that. At this point, because I'm doing this on camera, and this is the first time I've done a YouTube video of a build, I want to keep this one kind of simple and just show you, you know, what effect you can get without going, you know, a year into a build, or even 6 months into a build. So granted, I'm here, you know, practically every day doing this. I'm retired, I can do that. Some of you are, you know, not going to be in that position where you can spend all this consecutive amount of hours on something. And it might take 3 months of doing an hour or two of work every other day, or whatever you end up doing, just to get your head clear. And again, that's the focus of this. Is it's you know, meditation unto itself, where you're just trying to sit quiet and meditate. For a lot of people, that doesn't work. And, you know, for me, it doesn't work as well doing it, trying to meditate and clear my head that way, as it does if my hands are busy. And then as I'm working, my head is cleared, and I'm either just focused on the task at hand, or the task I've gotten to the point of you know, repetition, and having done it so often now, it's like breathing, and I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I can just, my hands are just doing it, and then I'm released to meditate, to think, or to empty and clear my head. And that's why I do this. For that reason, for the outcome, which I hope is, you know, a positive outcome, an appreciable outcome. But it's for both of those reasons. It's not just because I love, you know, to look at model airplanes. I mean, that's, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I do. I go to the Aerospace Museum, I look at other people's work. You know, you look online at what people are doing when they're modeling, you know, and trying to figure out how to explain you know, what that motivation is or why people do what they do. And some people, I mean, you know, there are projects I've seen that are just amazing. You know, meticulous metalwork. Some guy built a 1/12 inch scale Ferrari with an engine that runs, and the guy just built it, you know, piece by piece, had hand making and machining all of the parts exactly to the Ferrari plan, to their prints, to their drawings. And that is extreme, right? That is extreme. It's outstanding. It's artistic. It's incredibly you know, intellectual from that aspect of, imagine, you know, trying to do that. I don't know how many years. I think if I look at the video again, I want to say it took this guy maybe 20 years, 15 to 20 years to do it. A tabletop Ferrari that starts and has functioning brakes and accelerator and steering and the whole nine. There are aircraft models. There's some dentist in, I want to say in maybe Hong Kong or someplace, that has built these aircraft out of metal. I fabricated every part, again, right to the drawings. And you know, that's years in the making, and that's fine. You know, everybody's different. People are gonna do what they want to do. That's really what, you know, I'm all about. That do what you want to do. This is me taking it, just taking it easy, and just, you know, hopefully sharing a method that worked for a lot of people that aren't into that kind of detail, or don't need to go, you know, they actually have important other work to do during the day, and this is a sideline, this is a hobby, this is something, you know, you want to do for pleasure, meditation, or whatever. I don't know, whatever you want to do it for. Or maybe you don't, you know, you just want to watch, you know, this guy sit here and babble about it, you know, filling up YouTube with little videos. But either way, regardless, I don't care. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm doing it. And